Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. We are glad you could join us today. Welcome to Blue Star Family's Money Mondays webinars, a program dedicated to conversations about finances in the military. I am your usual host, Lydia Whitty, the JP Morgan Chase Financial Wellness Deploy Fellow with Blue Star Family's Campaign for Inclusion initiative. This initiative is aimed at raising awareness about the experiences of military families of color and increasing diversity in leadership within the military and veteran service organizations. About me, I'm an Army veteran spouse and an ardent advocate for foreign born military spouses and their families. Guess what? It is tax season. It's upon us again. Today, we'll be talking about taxes. With less than a month to go until the end of tax filing, Money Mondays, we want to make sure that we support you, our audience, with the relevant information you need and military tax benefits and everything, including tips and tricks, so that taxes don't seem like such a huge task, but it's something you can just do in 1, 2, 3 seconds. Not that it's just is that easy, but I mean, let's make it a little bit of fun. Of particular focus today will be our community, the military community, whether you're a service member, spouse, veteran, or family member, there will be something for everyone. So please join us. As usual, I'm joined by amazing panelists that are subject matter experts, particularly some from the IRS. We also have a private tax consultant. They do profound work to educators on tax issues. So without further ado, I would like you to meet, first of all, Sherry Sales. Hi, Sherry. Welcome.
Thank you, Lydia.
Hello?
Sherry has a bachelor's degree from the State University of New York, Brockport, with a specialty in accounting. Sherry started her career with the IRS in 1995. Well, Sherry, talking of experts, this is definitely an expertise. This has been so many years of you working with the IRS. I'm sure you got everything on your fingertips. Sherry was an internal revenue agent with small business, self employed, and for 17 years prior to her current position as a public affairs specialist with tax outreach, partnership, and education. Sherry fills much of her spare time volunteering in her community as well. She has volunteered with the Girl Scout of Orange County since 2001 in various positions and volunteers in hospitality and at St. Timothy's Church and volunteers also with the Laguna Niguel Women's Club in various community service projects. Thank you, Sherry, for all your service to our community. Next, we're going to meet, pardon me, I have my name up there as Nathaniel. Sorry, Nathaniel, today I took over yours. Uh, we're going to talk to Natalia Taniel. As a public affairs specialist, Natalia is part of the Tax Outreach Partnership and Education branch of the IRS. So she works together with Sherry. Welcome, Natalia.
Thank you.
Her strong background in education and communication are instrumental in the conveyance of necessary tax information with non traditional tax communities. A graduate from the Catholic University of America, Natalia started her career as a Baltimore and Washington, D.C. public school teacher and later joined the Army as broadcast journalist for American Forces Network with duty assignments in Germany, a media production and outreach specialist for the 1st Infantry Division. As a civilian, she had the privilege of being the lead writer and editor for Arlington National Cemetery. She was public affairs chief for 1st Army Division East and worked in publications and global outreach for DoDEA school system. Most recently, Natalia was a director communications for Army Futures, Command, Air, and Missile Defense, and a public affairs specialist with Veterans Affairs. Natalia also studied film at Morgan State University and is currently finishing an additional master's degree in education concentrating in curriculum instruction and design. Welcome, Natalia. It's very nice to have you. Last but certainly not least, we have Corolla. Thank you for coming, Corolla. Corolla is a founder of Corolla's Tax Assistance LLC with over 600 clients. So So you can tell she does this on the daily, as well as tax preparers and bookkeepers throughout the United States of America. She has started working for one of the biggest tax preparation services over 13 years ago and has since held various job titles, including assistant area manager, store supervisor, and has been teaching tax law for new tax preparers as well as military wives. Supporting her husband's military career for over 12 years has given Corolla experience with military lifestyle and has helped focus her tax business to support military service members and their families in understanding their unique tax requirements and credits. Thank you, Corolla. We believe we are in the right hands. Thank you also for your service as a military spouse. Now, before we ask some questions, we have the best panel here. I'd like to share some statistics with you for perspective. According to the IRS, almost half of the unpaid taxes owed by current and federal employees are owed by retired military, mainly because they do not understand their tax obligation. This is a huge, huge deal, especially for someone like me. I'm married to a veteran. I'm like, what else do we owe? What don't I know? I'm happy we're talking about taxes today because of that. So, we're going to begin with you, Sherry. As someone who's done this for decades, please help us understand why this is, and what will be some tips and tricks for filing taxes for both current and retired military?
That is a very good question, Lydia. Many retired military members are surprised at the amount of federal income taxes that they owe. And when they first retire and filing their first return from retirement. And people might ask, why is that? Well, I mean, when they are retiring, they are moving into a higher tax bracket. And doing that, they are not prepared based on the fact that they are used to their bracket that they had when they were in the military. So another possibility is the fact that they didn't have enough tax withheld. Plus, when you have a spouse who's working and when you retire, your income bracket is going up higher. So therefore, you're not having, again, the taxes not being withheld. So the one thing I highly recommend is that, first of all, first and foremost, we do have a publication 3, which is the Armed Forces Tax Guide, which I have right here. And this is going to help you to prepare for when you're leaving the military so that you're not in that situation of not having enough taxes withheld. So the first thing you want to do when you're retiring is you want to complete the form W-4P. This is going to tell the Defense Finance and Accounting Service how much you want to have withheld. And if you're not sure how to complete that, I'm sure that there is somebody in that department that can help and assist you with that. And then once you're out of the military and you're looking for that civilian job, and when you first secure that first civilian job, you want to work with the human resources department of that job. And what they're going to have you do is fill out a form W-4. There are worksheets that are provided that help you, assisting you in filling that out. And they do ask you on that form W-4 if there are other sources of income to be considered. And then another important thing to consider is it is very important to have the correct amount withheld from both your paycheck and your pension. So you should always consider if you have a working spouse as well, because if you're married filing joint, all of your incomes are going to go be considered together. Let's see here. I am looking at my notes here. Yes. Okay. So then the last thing I want to point out too is that the IRS does have a tool that you can use. If you go to the irs.gov website, and if you put in withholding estimator, they have a tool that helps you do what they call a paycheck checkup. And this will help you consider all sources of income to make sure that the correct amount is withheld. So I did come up with an example, because I know this is a lot to say, but I did come up with an example that might help you understand what I'm saying. So again, these are just rough estimated figures, but suppose you're retiring from the military and you have, we'll say $30,000 in pension income. And then we'll say you have a civilian job, you secure a civilian job, and we'll say that it has $40,000 in income. So combined, you're going to have $70,000 of income. And not looking at the tax brackets in front of me, we'll just assume that's going to put you in a 10% tax bracket. But then what you want to consider is that if you have a working spouse and she makes $30,000 in income, you now have a combined income of $100,000. That combined income can actually put you into a 15% tax bracket. But if you're not considering all those sources combined for when you complete your taxes at the end of the year, you, in theory, are only withholding 10% for taxes. So you can see where you're going to be short by that additional 5%. So that's why it's so important to completely go through that worksheet on the W-4, on the W-4P with your pension to make sure that you're looking at the total picture, not just your pension, not just your civilian income, not just your spouse's income, but the total $100,000. So hopefully with that example, it helps you realize how somebody can be under withheld and why they might owe at the end of the year. And by looking at the big picture, you won't have that issue.
Thank you, Sherry. Thank you, Sherry. I think I lost you for the last few seconds. Is there something you were saying?
Thank you. Thank you, Lydia.
Okay. I think it's just a matter of hanging a little bit. Thank you so much, Sherry, for that. Now I understand. I do understand, and I hope we can, consider everything as we file our taxes now as a veteran family. I'm going to move over to Natalia. Please share some trends you have seen in your time in as a service member and IRS employee, and what would be your top five, like some kind of tax tips and topics to note for the military community?
Okay. Since I've been with the IRS, I could probably give you 25 tax tips because there's a lot that I didn't know that I realized I was lacking because I didn't know. And I'm sure a lot of people have missed a lot of things along the way. But in working here, I've worked with a lot of military organizations, and questions and issues that I keep getting are more about relocating, the deadlines that the deadline, the time for the deadlines, the time frame. Sometimes it's not on people's radars because they're moving and doing things. Just keeping up with their tax information, what they need to do to keep up with it. So you'll hear from us probably, Sherry and myself, a lot of things about Publications 3, the publication that she held up. So much information is in there, and that publication is also right on the IRS site. But in thinking of the most important things, one thing is security. That is so important when you're moving around, and not all military people are moving around, but your statuses change. Your status changes with rank. More children coming in, all of the different things that happen that you know that we go through. Um, Security is priority, and an IP PIN is an IRS tool that helps to protect your identity. You can go to irs.gov/IP PIN, and there you'll find how to set up the PIN to protect your tax information. And there's this, it's a two-factor identity, so this makes it really difficult for a thief to steal your identity and file a false return on your behalf. So let's just say you're overseas, and I'll speak to this in a minute. You'll get you might have an extension. This will prevent if somebody, while you're waiting for your extension, somebody to come in and use your social security number and file on your behalf and take your refund before you even get to it. So the IP PIN is a really great resource, and it's right on our website to sign up for, and it's available for each individual in your family. Um, to the filing deadline, that is a question we get. This year it is April 18th. And we know about the extensions to file if you're overseas. So I'm going to just break it down a little bit. You are allowed an automatic 2-month extension to file your return and pay federal income tax if you're a U.S. citizen or resident alien, or on a regular, um, if you're in Puerto Rico or outside of, sorry, I'm sorry, if you're outside of Puerto Rico and the United States, you can have this automatic 2-month extension. There's special rules that apply if you serve in the armed forces on like a combat zone or a contingent operation. All of that information is on our website. Specific situations are for specific people. So just check the website and you can see what applies to you. This is the most important thing, and this is something that I never knew as a military spouse, as a service member overseas. Extension to file does not mean an extension to pay. You are responsible for all the penalties that accrue on payments owed from the original date of the deadline. So don't think just because I got these extra months that I'm not going to owe, fines aren't accruing. So please note that. That'll save you a lot of trouble. Third, I would say filing your income tax for free. Uh, there's things out there. We have the Mill tax. It's on the IRS site. It's for military people to file for free. There's IRS free file on the site as well, and there's VITA, the volunteer income tax assistance. That's in-person people, and sometimes you can do that virtually as well. And you can find out details about all of these and the eligibility on IRS Gov. You can even find where these VITA sites are in your area on irs.gov. I do want to go into the military tax really quickly because we're talking to military. Um, the mill tax site, I knew nothing about this when years ago. I'm a career spouse, pretty much. My husband's still in, and I never knew about this. And I think it's important to know about. It's just a suite of tax services available for members of the military. Um, it also includes qualifying veterans and family members. It's no income limit on this. The program includes tax preparation, electronic filing software, personalized support from tax consultants, and current information about filing taxes. It's designed to address the realities of military life. That includes your deployments, combat pay, training pay, housing and rental, and multi-state filings. Eligible taxpayers can use MillTax to electronically file a federal tax return up to 3 states for free. So that's really a great resource, and that's right on our site. The fourth one, especially for those who move around a lot and your statuses change regularly, establish an online account. That's right on irs.gov. Here you can add your power of attorney, make tax payments, see your tax transcripts from up to 3 years before. You can make payments on it. It's just a great way to keep up with what you have and what you're doing and what you need to know if you need to reference anything. And coupled with that is the fifth one is to create an online account. You want to keep good tax records when you file your taxes at the end of the year. I'm sorry, going along with the online account. Um, Whether it's your personal taxes or you're a business owner, keeping good records is going to really help you to make sure that your taxes are filed correctly. um, Here's a really good tip. If something comes to you in the mail from the IRS, don't throw it away. This is from personal experience. Hold on to it, even if you don't know what it is. When you need to go and file, it is to be referenced when you're actually filing. And you want to make sure you have all your ducks in a row so you're not going back to refile or amend things. So just hold on to those taxes with your record keeping. And I think those would be the 5 tips that I would share.
Thank you so much, Nathaniel. Thank you so much, Natalia, for that and all your tips. For our viewers, I have included everything both Sherry and Natalia have shared in the chat, so please feel free to click on those links and get everything that you need. I saw someone on the chat asking a question. Oh, first of all, there's a comment. Mala said, I did this. What did you do, Mala? We would like to know. Another viewer is saying, Sherry, would you recommend filing taxes individually once a service member retires? I don't know if you want to answer that.
Sure, I can answer that. I would just say it depends on your personal situation. If you are married, they say it's always better to file with the married filing jointly because they feel that it's a different tax bracket. You're taxed a little bit less. But then again, based on your own personal circumstances, there could be advantages to filing individually. So what I would recommend with that is, and Carola can maybe even add to that too, is that don't be afraid to contact a tax preparer. They can do tax planning with you. And if there's certain circumstances that fit married filing individually versus married filing joint, they can assist you with that.
Absolutely. I would say that too. Contact your tax preparer. They would be able to tell you what would be best in your situation. And that just has different things because there's several different credits out there, like education credits, that you would only be able to receive whenever you file a joint return. However, if nobody went to school, it might not be something that is needed for you, and then filing separate might be better for you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for those answers. I hope your question has been answered. Thank you. Keep them coming. We're talking about taxes. Excuse me. If you have a question or a comment, please feel free to add it in the comments. We are proceeding smoothly on to Carola. Thank you for the first few comments. I'm going to just ask you, what should service members, spouses, and veterans be looking for in a tax preparer? As someone that specializes in this, talk to us.
Thank you. So in regards to service members, spouses, and veterans, you should always make sure that you find someone trustworthy and someone that you can ask questions to. So a good tax preparer, they should know about military tax obligations, like deduction whenever it comes to moving expenses, which I know Sherry is going to talk to here in a little bit. They should also be familiar with additional exemptions whenever it comes to selling your home. So with selling your primary home as a military or as a member of the military is different than if you're just a civilian. And they should definitely be aware of MSRA. What that stands for is Military Spouse Residency Relief Act. And that act allows military spouses to claim their husband's residency. So for example, if you're stationed in California with your husband, but your husband's home of record is Texas, you can both claim Texas as your home of record, and then your spouse doesn't have to pay any income taxes to California. So that's something super important that your tax preparer should definitely be aware of. So ask questions, because that's where we usually see most of our questions coming from. Then in regards to military retirement, ask your tax preparer if they know if that's going to be taxable in that state that you currently live in. Sometimes there's extra nuances that depend on the age of the recipient, if the full amount is taxable or if there's going to be a certain exemption. We have that, for example, here in Colorado, where it's age specific. And then what I usually say is, if your tax preparer has never heard of BAH, a PCS, or MSRA, you should probably move on and find someone who does.
Oh, you are so right. That jargon can confuse anybody. So if they don't understand the jargon, that's your cue to, I am definitely in the wrong place. Definitely in the wrong place, because you need someone at least who understands that life and who understands what applies to you. Thank you for your answers, Carola. If you're joining us now, we're talking about taxes. Please share your comments. Let us know what you think. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them. All the better. If you join our Blue Star Families community as a member, you have access to tax resources and so much more. Now just go to bluestarfamilies.org. Now, this brings us to the most important reason why we're here today. What applies directly to the military community and the unique circumstances of military life? So I'm going to ask you, Sherry, you know the nomadic military life. How does moving PCS affect tax filing? And how about like split years? Thank you.
Okay, so first of all, I mentioned earlier the Armed Forces Tax Guide, Publication 3, and that information can be found on page 13. And even though most of your viewers right now might not have Publication 3 in front of them, if they go to irs.gov in the search engine and put Publication 3, that will come up and they can get their own copy of that. And I don't mean to keep mentioning it, but it really is a very important tool in doing your taxes. So in answering your question, Lydia, you may be able to exclude from income the value of government-provided services and reimbursements. If you weren't reimbursed, you may be able to deduct expenses you actually incurred when you moved. So to deduct moving expenses, you must be a member of the Armed Forces on active duty, and your move must be due to a military order and the result of a permanent change of station. So you talked about PCS. So that's what PCS stands for, permanent change of station. And that occurs in several situations. So when you are first enlisted into the military and you're moving from your home to your first post of duty on active duty, that is a PCS. Another PCS is when you're getting new orders to change locations. So from one permanent post of duty to another is another form of a PCS. And then another form of a PCS would be when you are at your last post of duty and then you're leaving the service, whether to retire or you're just you're resigning, you're leaving your 4-year your 4-year stint, your whatever, sorry. So anyway, so a move from your last post of duty to your home or to a nearer point in the United States. So the move must occur within 1 year of ending your active duty or within the period allowed under the joint travel regulations. So you might be wondering, okay, so that's nice, but where do I put this information when I'm filing my tax return? So everybody's filing a Form 1040, but in order to record your moving expenses, you need to do that on Form 3903. So when Lydia mentioned split moves, so you could have multiple moves in 1 year. You could enlist, get your first post of duty. You might be there for 3 months during your basic training, and then you might move to your first assigned station. So that's multiple moves in 1 year. So for each move that you do in 1 year, each change of PCS, you're going to complete a Form 3903 for each one of those. So the next question might be, what moving expenses are deductible? So when you're moving to a PCS or a permanent change of station, you can deduct reasonable unreimbursed expenses of moving for you and all the members that are in your household that are moving with you. So it's really important to remember it's only members in your household. So if you have somebody coming along to help or assist, but then they're going to go back home, like maybe a parent or another family member that's just assisting, their expenses are not deductible. It's just those that are in the household moving. So what can you deduct? You can deduct moving all of your household goods and your personal effects. And this is going to also include the expenses used for hauling a trailer, packing, crating, in-transit storage, and insurance. This is for 30 consecutive days. So 30 days from the date you're moving from your old PCS to your new PCS. And travel from your old home to the new home includes lodging. So if you're traveling cross country, we'll say from New York to California, and it might take you 6 nights to go cross country. Every time you stop at a hotel, each hotel stay, you can deduct that. You can deduct your car expenses and you can deduct airfare if you're flying. One thing I want to note with the car expenses is 2 different ways to deduct car expenses. You can do the mileage method. So the standard mileage method, what that means is if it's 2,600 miles to go from New York to California, for 2022, the mileage rate was 18 cents per mile. So you would multiply 18 cents by 2,600 miles, and that would be your deduction for mileage. Or you could go ahead and do what they call actual expenses. And what that would be all your gas, oil changes, and outside of the actual expenses, you're always allowed to take your parking fees and your tolls. That's not included in the car expense, but that's additional travel expenses. So you might be thinking, well, okay, that's great that I can deduct all these things, but what you can't deduct on the flip side is you can't deduct meals. So it might take you 5 or 6 days to drive cross country from New York to California. But if you stop to have breakfast, lunch, dinner, those are not deductible. And the reason being is because they feel you need to feed yourself anyway. That's just a normal part of sustaining life. They do not include that, unfortunately. Another thing that they will not include is, we'll say you're driving from New York, you stop in Nashville and you want to stay a couple of days, you want to see the the concerts and, maybe go to Graceland and stop to New Mexico and see whatever. You are not allowed to deduct side trips. You're only allowed to deduct from your old station to your new station. And it's not to say that you can't make those pit stops. You just can't deduct the expenses for those pit stops. And that would be the answer to that question, Lydia.
Thank you, Sherry. Well, we move a lot. Yeah, thank you so much. Next question to Natalia. Talk to us about landlords and homeowners. What if a family station fell from their home, renting somewhere else? What are deductibles and everything that, is part of all this move?
Well, I think what we all appreciate and we know are your living allowances, that good old BAH that you just talked about, and the BAS, all of the acronyms that we're so used to. One that I don't see much anymore, COLA, used to be one that everybody named. I guess it got turned into a different acronym now with the 2000s. But so you got your BAH, which is your basic housing allowance, your BAS, your housing and cost of living allowances abroad that's paid by the U.S. government or by the foreign government that you're connected with, your OHA, your overseas housing allowances. All of those are outside of your taxable income. So that's a great benefit for service members and their families to have that break. That's probably one of the most giving breaks that there are out there. Um, Additional military benefits. Well, if you own a rental, just let's make this clear. A lot of us um, have a home of record. We all have a home of record. And if we go somewhere else, a lot of times we rent out the home that we have. And we're moving into one of these other houses under the BAH and all of those other things. Um, just be aware that you do have federal tax responsibilities to the house that you are renting out. All renter income, it has to be reported on your tax return, and in general is associate any um, repairs or anything that you have to do to that can be deducted from your rental income when you file your taxes as well. Another thing that people probably don't connect is your death benefits. The death benefit, gratuity paid to survivors of deceased armed forces, American forces members, that's not taxable. I think the blanket price is like $100,000. That's not taxable. Um, there are tax breaks. There are a lot of individual things that pertain to your situation, but just to give you some ideas so that you can look it up to see if it's something that might work, that you might need to know about. There are tax breaks connected with the sale of principal residence for certain service members. Reservists who stay overnight for more than 100 miles away from home while they're on duty, they can deduct or reimburse travel expenses. That includes transportation, meals, lodging, um, and it's actually a line on your income taxes that you would put that in to get those deductions back. I have a son who is a service member. He's also an ROTC cadet. He often drives that far and pays for his own things for some things. He didn't even know about this. I had to share that with him so that he could know to do that. So I think a lot of people, and I know a lot of his unit didn't know either, because he came in complaining, I'm using up all my gas. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And there are ways around that and ways in place to help you. So that's just something good to know. Um, there's also the HAP, that's the Department of Defense Homeowners Assistance Program. That's connected with like the BRAC money to help you out if um, the area that you bought your property in is depreciated because the military base move or relocation, those kind of things. It's not the same type of area. The money that you get from those programs, that's not taken out in taxes. And then disabled veteran benefits. If you're a disabled veteran, your disability payment can qualify for certain exclusions. Again, I don't want to go into detail because it's specific situations for specific people. And all this information, again, is in that Pub 3 and on irs.gov. And if you put /military, you'll come up with so much of the stuff that we're saying, and then you can look at your own tabs to see what pertains to you specifically. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Natalia. We want to proceed with the next questions to Carola, but before we do that, there's I think a question I've seen on the chat. Someone is asking, ladies, how do you feel about military members using TurboTax to file taxes? Is it a good tool in your opinion? Any one of you, feel free to chime right in.
We're not allowed to endorse a specific product. But I would say that TurboTax is a good product. And if it allows the person wanting to file their taxes to achieve, filing their taxes correctly, then I would say that it's definitely a good consideration. But we're not allowed to endorse a specific product.
I'm going to chime in too. In regards to TurboTax, it's a good program, just like all of the other programs that are out there, but it's meant for the masses. Military is not considered masses. So you might have a really great federal tax return with TurboTax, but the state might give you issues because you might be stationed in a different state that you claim your home of record in, and that's where we see usually issues. And whenever you have a more complex tax situation, like having rental income or anything like that, it's always good to consult a professional rather than to go it yourself.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ladies. I guess, Carola, we're just going to continue with you right here. Talk to us about tax tips for spouses and veteran entrepreneurs as well. I know you do that.
I do. So I want to start like at the beginning. So I want to make sure that you register your business correctly. So make sure whenever you go anywhere else, make sure you're aware of state, county, and state requirements whenever it comes to businesses. So there might be business registrations that you have to have with that certain city that you're going to move to. So keep that in mind. If you have an LLC is a limited liability company that you created with a certain state. So let's say you created that in Oklahoma, but now you're moving to Colorado. Be aware of the filing requirements. If you have to close that business in that state to move to another one, like be aware of that. Reach out to the Secretary of State. They can usually answer those questions. Then whenever you get your own EIN number, which is the employer identification number for your business, when you create that online at the irs.gov homepage, it's really simple, but you have to know what you're doing. So if you say that you create that EIN number for hiring employees, it's going to require you to file a 940 and a 941 form going forward. And it also does that if you say that there's more than one member in the company. So if you consider your husband to be a member of the company, if you fill that out on that EIN application, it might consider it to be a partnership. Partnership means you will have to file an own business tax return before you file your personal tax return. So be aware of that and consult help. It doesn't cost anything to get that EIN number, but if you get it wrong, it costs you a whole lot to kind of fix it. Then in regards to tangible goods. So if you have a business and you sell tangible goods, something that you can touch, so any type of products, make sure that you know of sales tax requirements. So that's the major part that we see a lot of military spouses or military service members that are just leaving the military have issues with. And so be aware of those registrations being correctly. And then the major part in regards to anything that comes to businesses is keep track of your receipts. So find a good way that works for you to know where you put your receipts. Have like an online app or like QuickBooks or anything like that that helps you keep track of your receipts, where you can just take pictures of it and you have it available. With the military lifestyle, with us moving so frequently, it's always a good idea to know where you have those receipts. And then in regards to business overall, if you use your car for business, so if you have to meet clients, go to networking events, buy supplies or anything like that, know that you need to have a mileage log. You can't just tell me I drove 10,000 miles at the end of the year for business. I need to have that mileage log or mileage app. So apps are really a great way to help your business with receipt keeping and mileage log. That's like usually the easiest way. In the military, or even if you're not, and you have a home office, which means you have an area in your home that you use exclusively and regularly for business, use a home office deduction. So make sure that you keep track of those. Then if you buy equipment, so anything that you can use over a year that has a useful life for over a year, like a computer, furniture, anything that you need for your home office, that's going to be a depreciable item. And so whenever it comes to filing your taxes, you can either take that full deduction of that computer of that $1,000 that first year, or you deduct it over years. That's usually a really great tool whenever it comes to you buying a whole lot of things the first year, but not having a whole lot of income, but knowing that there's going to be more income in future years, it might sometimes help to depreciate those expenses. So to take that $1,000 and just do $200 for the next 5 years in expenses versus taking that full deduction that first year. And then the other part that we always see is military spouses love to have small businesses on the side. Make sure that you're actually making money with that. So what that means is the IRS doesn't like to see you have 3 losses in 3 consecutive years, because then it's considered a hobby. So if you have a loss in the first year because you had to pay so much equipment or anything like that, that's understandable, but you have to learn from it. So you can't just have a loss of $5,000 the first year, $10,000 the next, and $15,000 the third year. That's not gonna fly. You're gonna have to make sure that like you're gradually getting better, or there's a good reason on why you actually have that loss. So really think about if this business is more of a business or if it's a hobby. If it's considered a hobby, so you're doing something just because you're having fun with it, then you have $1,000 in income. You can only show $1,000 in expenses, and you can never go into that loss part. So be aware of your registration being correctly, be aware of where your business is going, and keeping track of those expenses is like the main thing that we are asking everyone to keep track of.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Carola. That was very, very helpful. As we come to the end of our program, thank you so much for everyone who's been participating, including those on the chat. Laura, thank you for your comments. I think talking about, someone asked about TurboTax, and she's talking about Intuit. She also put the Military OneSource and learn how to be exempt from state taxes. Ooh, another resource right there. Thank you everyone for sharing. Now, last but not least, any last thoughts, any reflections, any resources that you'd like to share with our audience? Any one of you can go. All right.
Okay, first I want to give kudos to Carol. Carol, you spoke to my inner revenue agent, because I did audit for like 17 years. And everything you said was spot on and perfect. I want to just commend you for that. That was just, I hope everybody took notes. It was really good. And so what I'm going to suggest, based on what you said, is, again, IRS has a lot of great resources. And what I'm going to suggest, if you just go to the irs.gov in the search engine, and I've made some printouts here. If you put small business self-employed, our tax center actually comes up. And it will tell you different topics. And one of the topics is how to start a business, starting a business. And if you click on that link, it takes you to another page. And on that page, on the left-hand side of the page, it tells you the publication. And in this case, starting a business, the publication is 4591. And I'll give you a lot of great tips. And then back to that small business self-employed tax center, there's one that's just called business taxes, like doing your business taxes. And if you click on that, again, on the left-hand side of the page, it tells you the publication is 583, which will give you a lot of great information about filing your business taxes. And then I would say, just for a business, the most important thing is record keeping. I can't stress that enough. Record keeping for your income, keeping your bank statements. And I know Carola mentioned like QuickBooks, but I mean, it can be as simple as just having an Excel spreadsheet. You can have an Excel spreadsheet for your income. You can have one for your expenses. You could do a timeline. And then the last thing that I used to see as an auditor, she talked about your car and your mileage. I mean, you could just keep a notebook in your car. And every time you get in your car and you drive to the post office, just write down the date, the mileage that you had on your car, and where you're going. And then when you come back, you just put the ending mileage. If you're going out to see a client, put the mileage, the date, the client's name, and what you're going to be discussing. This shows the business purpose of using your car. And another thing I want to stress too is when you're going out for a meal, or if you're going out to do something, you have an expense, you've purchased something to do with that client, don't be afraid to take that receipt and write down the client, name and what the business purpose you're seeing that client for. This just ties the total business purpose into the expenses that you're incurring. So again, I want to say kudos to Carol, and hopefully these additional tips will help you as far as managing your business as a spouse of a military person. Thank you.
And just real quick, I'd like to chime in on that as well, that I do think the small business information is so pertinent right now. I just did a small business expo last week representing the IRS, and every military spouse who came to my table asked, what do I do with regard to the new business that I'm starting? So we also have to remember that retirees are starting businesses when they leave as well. So this is really good information, and people are hungry for the information. So on the site, the Small Business Self-Employed Tax Center is great. There are workshops and everything there. And then not related to that, the last thing that I do want to reiterate, because it's the other thing that keeps tripping people, is, like I said earlier, extension to file does not mean extension to pay. So just remember that so that you're not caught off guard.
Awesome. I'm going to add something now too. So since we talked so much about the federal portion and the IRS search engine, so Google every single state that you kind of like what your home of record is, at least the home of record state, Google the Department of Revenue and use that search engine there. If you put in military or military resident, it will give you all of the tax credits that they have out for military. It will give you your military filing requirements. And it also gives you the tax exemption certificates or the forms that a military spouse has to fill out in order to be tax exempt and to give to the HR department of their employment. So there's no state taxes taken out, and you don't have to worry about filing a state tax return at the end of the year.
Thank you so much, everyone. Well, I had to write some of those down myself. There's quite a lot that I've learned here today. So thank you, everybody, for coming on. Some amazing information gathered today. I want to thank you, Sherry, Natalia, Carola, for being so passionate about helping our military community and military families particularly. For our audience, we'd like to hear from you as well. If you have a question, if you have a comment, please reach out, put it in the chat, or reach us, bluestarfamilies.org. Please info@bluestarfamilies.org. Please send anything you want to share with us. Even better, head over to our website and get resources from our financial wellness page. I have put a link in the chat at the beginning where you can get a lot more than just about taxes. There's everything, PCS, housing, childcare. There's a lot over there. Remember, we will continue to cover subjects like this, so join us for our next session on April. We will be talking about foreign-born military spouses, as I am, and I'm gonna hit you up, Carola, because you are one as well. We'll be having a summit to help foreign-born spouses like ourselves to get acclimated to life in this country. There's so much to learn if you're an immigrant. We will have subject matter experts talking about careers, evaluation of your credentials, which is a big issue, immigration, finances, and so much more. Let me drop you a link to that event on the chat right now before I forget, and hope to see you there. In the meantime, as you know me as the advocate for foreign-born military spouses, I am also, doing a survey on the challenges and the lives experiences of our foreign-born spouse community and our service members as well. There's a survey right there that I've put in the link. Please go there, fill out the survey. Let's understand these issues because nobody's talking about them right now, but I'd like to continue to advocate for these issues as well. So thank you again. And from everyone at Blue Star Families, have a great day. As always, we say here, if not me, who? And if not now, when? So hope to see you again soon. Bye-bye.